yesterday I worked from 3 p.m. until 11. Of course, I ate because you have to live, but that's just because I was just like, I'm already in the flow of like the argument of where it is that I want it to go. It would be much worse if I cut the flow. So, yes, there will be times that I obviously don't follow this system, but for the most part, it's just so that I can still have a life. I could still want to come back and work the next day. And yeah, I hope you find this helpful. Hi, I don't know if you can hear the music, but essentially there are people dancing by the quay. I just wanted to share a new breakdown to my video because it's not what I remembered. But essentially, I think this video, if you're looking to kind of like try to understand what it's like to be a philosophy student at La Sorbonne in terms of, you know, the work that goes into studying in the library for about at least 5 hours, 3, 4 times a week, and wanting to continue to do that. Essentially, I go through my rituals and my habits and my routines that I feel really help me reach my goals. There are no perfect answers, but I hope that this gives you an idea of how it is that, you know, how do I make all these things happen, essentially. So, yeah, first part, rituals, why it is that I do that, how it's helpful for me. Second, I guess, like, you know, a lot of tangents. And the last is me introducing my notebook and my journal that I hope is helpful for your workflow. Hi, this video is going to be about my study ritual where I go to the library about 4 times a week to study for at least 5 hours, but usually 5 hours and 45 minutes because there's a bit of a social life in the middle where you take a break with your friend. It was like a Saturday. I was like writing my notes and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And the funniest thing that my friend like said to me once was just like, she's like, you know, when we die, we get to like pass on our to-do list to our children. And the reason for that is because like before this new method, like the biggest thing about this ritual is, as you will see, like a type of journaling. I used to be definitely like a post notes kind of person, and they were just like, you know, sheets of paper that was everywhere. I think the main thing that I want to say is that this video focuses on how it is that we can cherish the process. I know it sounds like fucking annoying already, but like genuinely, like how we can cherish the process and not just focus on the result, because the result is never gonna come, because the result is when you die. Like that's like when it ends. I have my goals, but my goals are a means to my other goals. How, you know, with Aristotle, everything is a hierarchy. So you have all your little goals, but all your little goals is so that you get to the ultimate goal, which is happiness. So the first thing that I realized is that I'm actually a slow mornings person, or at least like slow mornings really help me. I need the mornings to process how it is that I'm experiencing life, or how I exist. Dreams, goals, plans. I remember like Jerry Seinfeld in an interview, he was just like, oh yeah, like for me, like I'm not a lay in beds kind of person. I'm like a get up and go kind of person. I can't do that. And I'm like, I'm definitely a late in morning kind of person unless like I have to go out to get something done. I mean, but to be fair, I wake up at 7 a.m. So I give myself like an hour to daydream. I know it sounds kind of ridiculous, but that's what I do. Something that I find that's extremely important to get done is exercises. There are two things. I'll put in two links below. One is this foam roller thing. If you sit down a lot, you walk a lot, in general, like I was like going through a lot of back pain, but that's because I carry a lot of books. Like there was this like one time, like I mean I didn't carry this guy. This was like a different day. But like these two, like from the library, like all around school and then back home, like, you know, and I love walking, so my back was like pain. So my back was really hurting, and then Liz introduced foam rollers to me. So that is actually something that I feel is very, very helpful, because once you realize that the tension is in your legs and you roll them out, then your back, like, you know, it stops compensating. Long story, but I'll include that. But also like this other person who I really like for like stretches. When I'm not in a rush, I do 30. I rarely do like 1 hour yogas anymore because it just feels like too much time. But 30 minutes, 20 minutes in the mornings, that's great for me. I definitely always have a really big breakfast because I don't like spending a lot of money or eating like outside food unless it's like dinner with friends once in a while, budget reasons, but also like it's just healthier. So big breakfast. And then what do? Oh yeah, and then I walk for like 45 to 1 hour, depending on which library that I'm going to that day, to basically like breathe, because you're going to be sitting, I mean, unless you take a break, for 5 hours straight. And I've done that before when I'm in the flow. You're going to realize like when you have like a short period of time, 5 hours, I know it seems long, but like it just depends. Like, what are you trying to do with your time? Once I get there, I do the journaling and my checklist. I'll explain that more in the second part. Then I do my first set of tasks, which usually is languages like ancient Greek or German. This is the video that I recently made for how it is that I got my B1 in my German test in a month, which by the way landed me my first scholarship. So the scholarship that I mentioned in that video, I actually won. So yeah, this is to say like, you know, this is the works so that I can maintain a level sense of being while all the current things that I want to achieve can happen. And then for German, practicing it, because the summer course requires that I become fluent in a month. But, you know, who knows? Who knows? Like, what is being realistic? You know, being realistic for the most part is comparing yourself to other people's limitations. Sorry, I'm reading a lot of Bourdieu, but anyway, you'll see a video on that soon, I think. Once I get all the stuff that I need to get done for classes out of the way, then I do my research for all my papers that I care about. It's kind of like, you know, you just work hard to do what it is that you want to do. The last thing I wrote was, as long as I've moved forward, even if I don't finish, I try to convince myself that that is enough. I'm also in a work in progress thing. I'm giving you advice based on what I feel so far works most for how it is that I understand things. None of this is like a complete perfect system. It never is, and it's, you know, for each person. But hopefully you find this helpful. And in the same vein, I tell myself that if I finish early, I relish in it. Because on the rare occasions where I'm like, oh, I'm done, there's nothing else left to do for today, I try really hard to just close my book and leave the library and do something that I want, instead of going like, well, I'm just gonna add this task from tomorrow. Because for me, like when I work nonstop, like throughout the holidays, is so that I can minimize my workload for the coming weeks and to give myself grace for days that I just cannot work, days that I just have to lie in bed and just breathe. Where my daydreaming has to be more than a simple hour. And then like I finish, walk home for an hour, and then yeah, come home, and then I say this now, but it's supposed to be like, you come home and you eat and just watch Netflix and relax. I watch Netflix with German subtitles to help with my German, because there's just not enough time in the day. I would like to tell you that I do nothing after that, but now with what I want to get done, I either read or I, you know, edit YouTube videos, or how it is that I want to prepare stuff for YouTube, because YouTube, I'm taking it as like a part-time job. I mean, it takes that amount of time because it's kind of like me doing a paper, but in oral form, like a presentation. So it's like I go to a text, I break it up, I think about it in sections, and then I try to present it in a way that a person who does not have this cultural history of philosophy could have a way into the text. So that takes like, you know, planning as well. Not really super healthy, but I woke up happy this morning and super excited to get my day done. You know, with the rituals and everything, I'll explain in the second part, especially with the journaling. But I think like generally just having like a system makes your body feel a bit of comfort, because you understand what is required next. And also like you understand that all of these are just in sections, and then you also have allotted time for yourself. This goes back to how I don't actually have time after, but that is why I daydream for an hour in the morning, and that is my me time. So before I go to the second part, which is basically all of this in a bit more detail, which is a lot more tangents, I would like to thank and welcome Krishna to Axioms on Patreon. It was really funny because the way that he came in, it was like 5 or 10 minutes left to the book club, which is something that we do every first Sunday of every month. And Krishna was just like, he popped out, he's like, hey, and I was like, I think you got the time difference wrong. Like I felt bad because like, you know, he missed essentially the call. Also like, you know, thank you to everyone who supports me on my Patreon, because when I associate myself with like the online space, it has been such a gift for me to associate it with people who, you know, are on the Discord and people who I actually speak to once a month, or if you're in Axiom's, like twice a month on these calls. Anyway, the interesting thing about Krishna coming in was that like, okay, he was really, you know, like excited, great vibes, and he waited like for 5-10 minutes, and after that, like I said to everyone, like, would you mind just introducing yourself? Everyone did like a quick introduction. And then Krishna, like, during his introduction, he asked like really interesting questions that I didn't know that I really wanted to answer. So then, like, I told everyone else, like, okay, like, you know, you can like leave. Like, I don't want to take more time than we talked about. But everyone, I think, was also interested in his questions. So then everyone stayed, and then I was just going off. I was going off answering these questions, and at the end, he was just like, "This was pretty cool. Like, you know, I don't think you would have answered this if I wrote a comment on YouTube." And I will admit, like, no. Because once you leave the library after like 6 hours, you're not there anymore. Well, I'm not there anymore for a while, and that's why I have to walk to find myself again. This is a very long, like, welcome part for Krishna, but it is a very big thank you to everyone who supports me and who talks to me and helps me a lot as well. So thank you, Nafir, for recently helping me with a logistical issue, and thank you, Joshua, for all the design work and support. So thank you, Krishna, for your questions. And finally, let's go on to our second part, which is a bit more detail into why. So going back to Liz, and I'll link like Liz's YouTube channel below. Liz is like has been a friend of mine for a really long time, but she also is an extremely kind and like wise person. When like I was having this crisis about writing this paper, it wasn't even a paper, it was like a detailed plan for my director. The advice that she gave was just to have like 30-minute increments of writing, and then, you know, doing what I want for 20 minutes, and then like, you know, continuing forward. And I ended up writing the first section that I wanted to do. I ended up writing for like 2 hours, and then I took a break, I ate, and then I came back to it, and I finished it at like 12. Yeah, it was difficult for me to put it down to paper, but this thing that I sent to him when I met him for the meeting, he was like, this is interesting. It's really complex and interesting. And I was like, he doesn't need to know. The point is that this advice is just to say that you should show up every day. Like, show up every day. And this, I will go through like, you know, the part 3, but do you see this like circle thing that I kind of colored in? Yeah, essentially it's just about like a feelings check, a mood check, and there's this image that's really been helpful for me, and when I saw it I was just like, oh wow, this looks and feels great. It was just like this circle, and you don't have to fill it all the way in every day. I will also say that this has been a huge change from me before. How like before I got into my current program, I was in the library from 10 to 7 every day. And yeah, I'll just sit there, break my day up into 3 parts, which is kind of in my first video. Actually, that was like my first system. But now, like, you know, with the state that I'm at right now, it's much more about research, and there's a lot more digesting to do than just like memorizing and like writing notes. I think you need to find like a system that's suitable for your goals. And I can afford myself now to have longer mornings for me. And also, like, you know, when I was at the libraries at 10 a.m., I would take the bus or the train, and that would mean like less walking, less sunshine. Don't remember it being like a very like terrible time, but I do feel like I would like to have a life and not just like have this part of my life like pass me by completely. I was just saying to Liz, like, for me, the way that I enjoy things is like when I got my conference to Prague, the amount of work that went to actually writing that paper was also like a lot. But I watched again like the first like 4 minutes, and I think like I really still stand behind everything that I say, and I think that's only due to the fact that like I take a lot of time to research and to put things together. I realize like as a thinker, I'm a synthesizer. So like I love pulling things from a lot of different places, which I guess that's the Zizek influence that I have, like really interdisciplinary. I look at like patterns and like clear analogies rather than being coherent within only one system, which to me it's not very intelligible because you need comparisons to see how like structures and systems work outside of one specific domain. I'm talking a lot more than I thought I would in this video. In saying that, for me, like, my enjoyment of life comes from these opportunities that are created based on the level of effort and care that I put into each work that I do. And then after that, I went to the ballet, which, by the way, like, you know, in Europe, it's not like in America, it's not like a ridiculous price. And then after that, you know, this guy who met me at the conference, you know, we walked around like Prague, and I saw Prague like without any tourists at night, and she was beautiful. Oh gosh, I have to go to school. But my point is that I enjoy like going to the museum the day after as well, before my flight back. And then when I came back, then I had my presentation on Kuhn, so I'll link that as well if you're interested. And by the way, the day before my presentation on Kuhn, I had to do my commentary on Hegel because I missed it because I was in Prague. So yeah, there's just like constantly like these like bombardments of things to get done. But would I have preferred not to have gone to Prague and not to have done my first like talk at a conference? Like, of course not. I'd rather like go through all of that. So rituals, again, like it's basically like this home-based grounding for me for when I have to have like those times where, you know, things are decided by times that have to accommodate a lot of different people. And yeah, I think like, you know, a center point for yourself that you decide that you are in charge of your own laws is really important. I hope you find this helpful. I have to go to class, and I wish you a great day. Bye. And then I'll try to get them out of my bag. Are we going? Yes. Okay. Hi, sorry, thank you for helping me tape this. Cuckoo. Okay, so these are my two notebooks. Have you seen them in real life? Okay. ¿Cómo?
It's the first time.
Yeah. I hope you like the first impression. This is the notebook and this is the journal. This one I had it in matte because I didn't really like it in gloss, so we did it matte. When I say we, actually me and Joshua designed it together, so shout fucking out Joshua. Thank you so much. The edition, I guess we could call this, is Absurd Courage. I know I know you would like it. The thing that I realized was just, you know, because I work a lot on this idea of certainty and a lot about epistemology and la connaissance, knowledge, I feel like for the most part there's always a room of absurdity because, you know, there's a lot of contradictions. How do you move past them without ignoring all the events of life? Exactly. But the idea about courage is that even if you do not know, even if it seems absurd, you take the step forward. So that was the main point of this edition. With the journal, the idea here is that, you know, every time that I meet Soraya, where I've been told that I suffer from perfectionism. Yeah, I know. So the idea with the circle is that, okay, this is what I want to attain, but there was this image that I saw that was very helpful, which showed like the circles being colored in not all the way all the time. The main point is that you show up, and every day you show up, even if it's like only a halfway or even just a little bit, like even if you show up, as long as you show up every day to progress, that is the best we can do. And I think like that's the way that we strive towards excellence. Every day starts with the circle. It's kind of like a feelings check, like how do you feel, whichever way you want to qualify what it is that you're going through. The dots are just, you know, guidelines, but it's not really something that you have to really abide by. So you have 1 page to journal, 2 page to journal. And then I had a strict thing because personally sometimes I journal on forever and then you never actually get to work, because the point of this book for me is something that I do every time before I start my 5.5 hour ritual, which is like I sit down, I have all my worries, all my thoughts, all these things that are accumulating inside of me that like I felt like it was getting in the way of me being able to get into flow and focus. So it's just the idea that you have a quick dump or you have a quick reflection of what it is that you're facing in life in general before you bring yourself into focus. And that is why the checklist is at the end over here. So the way that this is designed is that there are 6, which I personally don't abide by because I gave Jenna this advice. Jenna is the person that was talking to me about my postcards. Thank you to all my friends and thank you, Soraya. And the reason why this is significant is that I only have 6 so that you don't actually overtask yourself with what you need to do. There are things above the line and there are things below the line. So the one that's above the line is something that you have to finish today, or it's super urgent. Like your assignment is due in like 2 days, so you need to get it to whichever shape it needs to be. Whatever is below the line would be like a nice thing to get done, but like it's not the end of the world if you move it to tomorrow. So that's kind of like how it is that I choose to prioritize my urgency, like what is really important. And it's a concrete thing to show you that every day you showed up. Even if you only mark off one, even if you mark off nothing, the fact that you wrote down your thoughts is like you are, I think, like appreciating the process of what it is that you're doing moving forward as well. The last thing I want to say is that this other circle here is supposed to be how you feel at the end of the day. And the idea is that with all these like circles from the top, I don't know how I'm going to show this, but like you will get to see like your progress over time. What I've learned is that you start and then you make little changes. The best advice that I received recently was just like, il faut éviter le tout et oui, tout ou rien, like all or nothing. So invest, take your steps, and this is emblematic of what it is that I hope that this book also encourages in your workflow. The notebook numbers go up to 200. So the idea with the numbers is one of my friend in Le Fisc, which is logic, philosophy, and science, said that she really liked gridded books as well, but she really want ones with numbers so that she can actually like index herself. So what that means is that this goes up to 200, and then after that there are blank pages. So the blank pages are basically freestyle, or if you want to index yourself. I think like it's very important for me as well, like, you know, sometimes you just have a random thought that you want to put somewhere and maybe it won't go in your like your page system. So yeah, I personally find the paper quality really nice. It's in cream. I was told that like colors might be therapeutic, but I think environmentally I'm not really sure, you know, the difference between printing on paper, because again, like once I get maybe, you know, better suppliers, because I love like papers, and I think like I just really personally enjoy this idea of having a home for everything that you do and not just thinking about the result at the end. I think like what I've just like realized like over the years is that I find it such a shame that all the progress that I make towards actually writing a dissertation or writing a commentary or anything that like comes into 8 pages from hundreds and hundreds of pages that I've read, all being like, you know, disparate pieces of paper, it's kind of not upsetting, but like it would have been nice if for some of my ideas, like right now for my project, my memoir, I have this one book, and it's just very nice to feel like these quotes that I've collected have a home. The other ones, you know, I still keep them really well, I still like go back to them and everything, but I really like this idea that even your progress has a home and it's not just your final result. So I hope you find them interesting. I hope that if you decide to get them, that they are helpful to you. And I thank you for your time, and I wish you a lovely day ahead.